Today you're launching MentorHer, a call to action for men to mentor women. You've been promoting the idea of mentorship since Lean In, but why this and why now?
Now is a watershed moment. MeToo has shined a light on the need to end sexual harassment for good forever, and that is critically important. It's also critically important, as you write in your book, that we get more women into leadership roles. Today we're publishing a survey done by Lean In and SurveyMonkey, which says that almost half of male managers in the U.S. are now afraid to do common work activities with women. And if the reaction to what's going on is that men stop mentoring women, that's unacceptable because we need more women in leadership roles, and women have long gotten less mentorship and sponsorship than men, particularly women of color. So now's the time to invest more in women, not less. And so MentorHer, which we're launching today, calls on all leaders to mentor women, but also to make access equal. Our survey also shows that a senior man today is 3.5 times more likely to hesitate to have dinner with a junior female colleague than a junior male colleague, and 5 times less likely to feel that they can travel with a junior female colleague than a male colleague. We have to make access equal. If you're not comfortable having dinner alone with a woman, then don't have dinner alone with a man. Have lunches and breakfasts with everyone. Or have dinner, but make sure everyone's behaving appropriately. What matters is that access for women is equal. Because again, now is our time to invest more, not less, in getting more women into leadership roles.
The numbers in your survey, Cheryl, are staggering, and I know you're having conversations with business leaders everywhere. What are men telling you that they're afraid of? And what's your advice to men and women? Because sometimes women don't know whether to accept the invitation at all.
Well, everyone has to behave appropriately in the workforce all the time, but we have to make sure that women still get the mentorship and sponsorship they need. And that means direct feedback. It means the right kind of feedback. So it turns out, and this won't surprise you, that the feedback women get in the workplace is often about their personal style, whereas the feedback men get in the workplace is often the skills-based feedback that helps them succeed. We need women and men to get the right kind of feedback, but we need a very explicit commitment by leaders of all gender, and that includes men because most of the leaders are men, to mentor women. And that means to continue to invest, to continue to have the conversations, to give women the feedback they need that gets them to the next level. Women are 6% of the Fortune 500 CEOs. Women are 20% of the U.S. Congress. Both men and women that get into those positions of leadership, they get there with hard work and they get there with help from other people and mentorship. And we want to make sure that we continue and really increase that investment in women, and especially women of color.
You've shared your own experiences with harassment, a hand on your leg, under the table, at a meeting, unwanted visits to your hotel room to the point where you had to call security. 25% of the people in your survey think the reports we've heard so far of sexual harassment are just the tip of the iceberg. Do you agree? And what do you think is the next chapter here?
I feel fortunate that everyone I've ever worked for has been not just appropriate, but supportive. And then my next sentence thought to myself is, that shouldn't be lucky, that should be a basic, because every woman and man deserves a safe and secure workplace, and that needs to change. But in order for it to change, we need institutional long-ranging change. So we need companies of all types, organizations of all types, to adopt clear policies. Policies that when reports are made, things are investigated, there is swift action taken. We need victims to feel safe, no retribution, the legal support they need, the social support they need. And we need to really end the culture of complicity, where people can look the other way and not feel responsible. We're all responsible for what goes on in the workforce. And importantly, we need more women in leadership. It's not a surprise to figure out that organizations that have more women in leadership roles have lower levels of sexual harassment and better work-life policies and perform at a higher rate because more diverse teams perform better. And so in this watershed moment, we need to make sure that we really, really continue to invest and get more women in leadership roles.
Some people have complained that the MeToo movement has gone too far, that some of the stories that have been told shouldn't be told, and this is more like a public lynching. What do you think?
I think the question is not if MeToo has gone too far, but if MeToo has gone far enough. Because this can't just be a moment in time where people raise their voice. These brave women that have raised their voices, they want long-standing change. Change that's not just for the day or the month, but for the years and the decades. And that means we have to have the right institutional policies. And those policies have to include due process investigations. Things need to be investigated and swift action needs to be taken. And importantly, we need to end the culture of complicity. We need to end the practice of looking the other way and then it's not your responsibility, because it's all of our responsibility.
We know that Facebook is making a lot of changes to, as Mark Zuckerberg says, fix itself, and that so much of harassment isn't just happening in the physical world, it is also happening online. Now you have people out there saying, powerful people saying that, you know, there's this backlash against big tech, that tech is addictive or dangerous, or that they don't want their kids to use services like Facebook. What are you specifically doing to address those concerns?
Well, we're taking a lot of steps, most importantly, meaningful social interactions, where in people's newsfeed, they're going to see more things from friends and family. On the topic of what we're talking about today, Facebook has had long policies against harassment, bullying, against any form of gender-based hate online, and it's something on Facebook we take super seriously. We recently rolled out new anti-harassment tools so that people can take more steps to block people from trying to repeatedly contact them from multiple accounts. And people are able to read or respond to a message without the person knowing whether or not, and not respond to a message without the person knowing they did it. The safety and security of people on Facebook and women on Facebook is something we've always taken very, very seriously.
Ev Williams, the co-founder of Twitter, told me in my book that he thinks if there were more women on the early Twitter team early on, maybe online harassment and trolling wouldn't be such a problem, that they weren't thinking about this enough. They were thinking about great things that could be done with their product, not how it might be used to send death threats. You know, my understanding is also that when you got to Facebook, you started asking questions about the content policies, and that may well be why Facebook does a much better job of this than Twitter. How do you think the internet might be different if women had been more involved in more equal numbers at building it early on? Like, do you think online harassment and trolling would be the problem it is today?
I think the data is super clear that more women in leadership roles in all industry has huge positive benefits. Higher performance for those companies, better work-life policies, lower levels of sexual harassment. And I do think that women play an important role in looking out for some of the gender-based harassment that women have long faced. I think Facebook is lucky because our leader, Mark Zuckerberg, takes these issues every bit as seriously as I have. But do I think Silicon Valley would be a better place if there were more women running more companies? Absolutely. I think every industry would be a better place if there were more women running more companies and more women in government. And when we fought to get here, but women are 20% of the U.S. Congress. And I think we often suffer from the tyranny of low expectations. I remember when women got 20% of the seats in the Senate in 2012, and all the articles were like, women take over the Senate. And you're like, wait a second. 50% of the population with 20% of the seats is not a takeover. It's a gap. And I think we need to make sure that in this watershed moment, we make the long-standing change we need. No sexual harassment ever for anyone, and investing in women so that women get their share of the leadership roles. We are very far from that, but this is a moment where we can invest more to make it happen.
Cheryl, last question. Facebook's numbers are rising in some categories when it comes to women at the company, still average for women in technical roles. Some say this issue isn't going to improve until we have more women at all levels, which seems to be sort of an impossible catch-22. People have told me they don't want to lower their standards to hire women, and I'm sure you have many thoughts about that excuse. But really, is this about hiring people who don't necessarily check all the boxes, about taking a chance on someone, or is this about looking harder?
Getting more women and more people of color into our companies in Silicon Valley, but also into all industries and especially into leadership roles is critical. And I do think it's about looking harder. At my foundation, which is Lean In, which granted is small, we put in place the diverse slate rule, meaning we made no hires until we saw a qualified person of color. And in the case of Lean In, we had to see men because we were all women. And you know what happened? We are now more than 50% people of color, and we have a man at the Lean In Foundation. And we didn't lower our standards at all. We hired the very best person for the job, but we just had to look a little longer and a little harder for candidates. At Facebook, we are now putting in the diverse slate approach across the company at all levels, and we're already seeing it make a difference. The talent is out there. We just have to find it.